So much confusion surrounds the legend of the Knights Templar. As with everything, there is an official story, there is a true story, and there is an untold story. The official story is what they want everyone to believe. The quote, true story is the version put out there to make those in search of the truth think that they found the truth and stop there. The true story is purposefully controversial or sinister sometimes to make it that much harder to resist. The untold story is the one that's actually based on reality, but the problem is that it seems so far removed from both the official story and the true story that it ends up going nowhere. That's why it's the untold story. It's like a piece to the puzzle that no one has a clue what to do with because they don't even realize that it's a piece to the puzzle to begin with. That's how the real truth can be hidden in plain sight. This will be my third video on the Baphomet, and this one involves the Knights Templar. Among the many criminal charges that King Philip IV brought against the Templars were heresy and idolatry. They were accused of worshipping something called the Baphomet. Today we hear that name and we think of a horned, goat-headed hermaphrodite. If asked who it is, most Christians would probably say the devil. And they're right, in a way. The problem is that they have in their minds the image of a devil that's completely false and misleading. But that's all part of the plan, because the real devil, the real enemy of man and the Most High God, looks nothing like the image of the Baphomet we've been given. But as long as you don't know that, as long as you think Satan looks like this big hairy hermaphrodite, you'll never see the real enemy for who she is, or who she claims to be even. Before I move on, I would like to invite you to watch my previous two videos on the topic of Baphomet. The first one gets into the biblical symbolism found in the Baphomet image. The second video uncovers some of the ways the ideology behind the Baphomet manifests in society and in the entertainment industry. Briefly touching on some of those things that I've discussed in those previous two videos that I mentioned, before discussing the Knights Templar connection. Deuteronomy 4, chapter 4, verse 15 through 19 gives us a clue of what the Baphomet embodies, and it is the amalgamation of everything that the Most High God has warned us against worshiping, on earth and in the heaven above. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest ye corrupt yourselves, and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, should be driven to worship them and serve them. And as you see in the Baphomet, you have the wings of a fowl, the head of a goat, which is a beast of the earth, and down there in the groin area you have the caduceus staff, which is a symbol of medicine. And also you will notice that this staff is an artificial member of this person's body. So while I guess opposite of that, you have natural female breasts, you have down below that the unnatural male phallus. And also the staff is a symbol of power. The scepter or the staff is the symbol of authority, and it is a phallic symbol, and phallic symbols are typically symbols of authority. So whether that phallus is even real and true and belonging to this Baphomet, who knows. So beyond that, you have right behind that caduceus rod or staff, there you have the scales of a fish, and up above the right hand you have this white crescent moon, which could represent or represent the sun. And opposite of that, down below, you have the dark side, which is the what would be the well, it's definitely the moon in this case, opposite of the sun. And this whole thing is about alchemy. So we have on this next picture, we have the Kabbalah tree of life next to the Baphomet, and I'm showing here how the right side of the Kabbalah tree of life is the masculine side. In the left side, the blue is the feminine. So the red is the masculine and the blue is the feminine. And also you will notice that the red is the color of the Republican Party, and the blue is the color of the Democratic Party. And you have a male Republican running for president now, and a female Democrat running for president right now. And in between that, the middle path is the synthesis. That is the what people will call the happy medium, or the compromise between the two, or the fusion, the harmony between both sides. That is also part of alchemy. So the right hand path, which is on the masculine side, is, I guess you could say, it's the uses of benevolent methods, the white magic, right? And on the left hand path, you have on the left side there, on the feminine side, the blue side, is what you have what's called black magic, and this involves killing the conscience, or the cremation of care, and it adopts the breaking of taboo and the abandoning of set morality. At its roots, the left hand path is the feminine path. So Eliphas Levi, which is not really his real name, but Eliphas Levi is the person who drew this Baphomet image. From Wikipedia, Eliphas Levi, born Alphonse Louis Constant, February 8, 1810, and died May 31st, 1875, was a French occult author and ceremonial magician. Eliphas Levi, the name under which he published his book, was his attempt to translate or transliterate his given names, Alphonse Louis, into the Hebrew language. This is a note from me. Eliphas did claim that his drawing was of the Baphomet of the Knights Templar, but in my opinion, since Eliphas Levi was not born until 1810, which is almost 500 years after the Knights Templar were dissolved, his drawing of Baphomet is very unlikely to have anything to do with the real Baphomet, or Sophia, that the Templar were accused of worshipping. From Hermetic.com, in the eyes of the Western world, Eliphas Levi's illustrations of Baphomet is a representation of the Christian devil, the source of all evil. The French occultist illustration from his magnum opus, Transcendental Magic, shows a winged, goat-headed creature, a pentagram on his forehead, surrounded by occult symbols, all iconography associated with the devil. A pitchfork and a barbed tail are all that would be needed to complete the stereotype. So this is that stereotypical image of the devil that we receive. But as I mentioned earlier, that is a false image given to us. From Templarhistory.com, somewhere between the years of AD 1118 through 1120, King Baldwin II granted the group quarters in a wing of the royal palace on the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It has been generally accepted that for the first 9 years of their existence, the Templars, as they came to be known, consisted of 9 members. In 1310, the Templars were officially dissolved by Pope Clement V at the Council of Vienna. I think that's Vienna. Although the Templars were not found guilty of the crimes they were charged with, idolatry being one, it was felt that the reputation of the order had fallen to so low a state as to warrant dissolving the order. On March 18th, 1314, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake for having recanted his earlier confessions of guilt. The Baphomet mythos. Central to the accusations brought against the Knights Templar was that they worshipped an idol, said to have taken the form of a head or sometimes a black cat. Although the popular mythology related to the Templars gives this idol the name of Baphomet, the fact remains that in all the testimonies against the Templars, the term Baphomet was used but twice. From northernway.org, Templarism is a form of esoteric Christianity. Perhaps one could call it underground Christianity. Sometimes Templarism is inaccurately called Gnosticism, later called downright heresy by the Church. As well we know, secret codes and ciphers were used to conceal certain of their most dangerous doctrines, such as the existence of a co-creator, a goddess partnered with God the Father. This is a note from me. I believe it is very accurate to call Templarism Gnosticism. As you will see, they have a lot in common. The great goddess Sophia was this being, and it was she who incarnated as Mother Mary, and perhaps Mary Magdalene, though it is unclear since both Mary and Mary Magdalene lived at the same time. Some theories are that the Shekinah was Mother Mary and Sophia was Mary Magdalene. Surely it is not mere coincidence that both women bore the same name. Miriam later derived into Mary its Greek form. From northernway.org again, the Atbash Cipher proved that Baphomet was a code word, a cipher for the name Sophia. You can also see this on TemplarHistory.com. You will see that the Atbash cipher, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, says Baphomet one way, and reversed it results in Sophia. So from The Goddess, the Grail, and the Lodge by Alan Butler, page 221 through 223, there are clues as to the true nature of the beliefs that the highest members of the Knights Templar espoused, into which initiates proved worthy and capable were gradually brought. These existed from the very start of the institution and were part of the original rules of the order. They had been drawn up by Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. The Templars never lost faith in Bernard. It is said that during his long captivity, Jacques de Molay composed a prayer to and concerning Saint Bernard. Bernard had remained the single most important individual to Templarism for nearly 200 years. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, presumably with the full sanction and agreement of the original Templar Knights, had dedicated the knightly order unequivocally to the Virgin Mary. All its endeavors were undertaken in her name, and it was this name that they cried as they went into battle. The Templars were, from the beginning to end, a Marianist Brotherhood. Bearing in mind Saint Bernard's own reverence for Mary, or whatever she actually represented in his mind and heart, it is likely that the original Templars, and perhaps the whole order for 200 years, maintained a common belief with Bernard. Source: America, Nation of the Goddess, The Venus Families, and the Founding of the United States by Alan Butler and Janet Walter, page 96. Bernard's adoration of the Virgin Mary knew no bounds, and it all started with a most unusual encounter when he was a young priest. According to his own words, Bernard had been praying before a statue of the Virgin when she lifted her hand to her breast. Drops of milk then fell from her breast into Bernard's open mouth. And there are images of this event that you can find if you search for Saint Bernard, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. If you search for his name, they will pop up. You don't have to search milk squirting or anything. From that moment on, he committed himself exclusively to the Virgin Mary, and it was something he passed on. Although historians often point to the veneration the Knights Templar had for John the Baptist, in reality their patron was always the Virgin Mary. Almost all Cistercian abbeys were named for her, as were many, if not most, Templar churches. Back to the goddess, the grill, and the lodge again. The bearded head mentioned in the original charges is interesting, and it may represent the vestiges of a much earlier and essentially pagan belief. The Celts, in particular, had a cult of the severed head. Examples of sculpted stones can be found all over the Celtic world. This head may also have related John the Baptist, for whom the Templars had a special reverence. But of course, that's the official story. Even more likely is the suggestion that the bearded head could have represented the Green Man. Effigies of the Green Man are to be seen in many Gothic churches and cathedrals. Generally speaking, the Green Man is simply a face. He is usually depicted as being composed of branches and leaves, and quite often has tendrils of plants emanating from his mouth and nostrils. Few historians now doubt that the Green Man is a hangover from the days of nature worship, and in particular, worship of the goddess. Here's a note from me. The Green Man is also named Cernunnos. This is Apollyon in your Bible. Of special interest is the name that Philip's representative said the Templars attributed to this head, namely Baphomet. The word Baphomet has a very special meaning. As early as 500 BC, Hebrew writers and scholars had begun to use a code which has come to be known as the Atbash Cipher. A full realization of the importance of the Atbash Cipher only came to light with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Essene in particular used this method of hiding specific truths. The Atbash cipher is a fairly simple substitution cipher. It was the highly respected New Testament scholar Dr. Hugh Schonfield who realized exactly what Baphomet meant when the Atbash cipher was applied to it. In all probability, the name Baphomet had nothing to do with the mysterious bearded head of the Templars, and the confusion may have been due to the ineptitude on the part of Philip IV's interrogators. A reminder, the Templars were accused of idolatry, and King Philip IV had interrogators to get them to confess of their crimes, their alleged crimes. However, the word was still of tremendous importance to the Templars because once it has gone through the mill of the Atbash cipher, Baphomet comes out as Sophia. The Templars were dedicated to the Virgin Mary, for whom they showed what amounted to an obsession. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux had deliberately manipulated the Catholic Church of his day to virtually deify Mary. The Templar order was accused of worshipping Baphomet, which we know is a code word and which really means Sophia. Sophia in turn is often represented as a dove. The dove has represented the goddess for thousands of years. It seems more and more likely that the true religious imperatives of the Templars meant that, in 14th century Christian terms, they were guilty as charged. That is all I have. Thank you for watching. Just so that there is absolutely no confusion, I will reiterate one more time that the Baphomet name has nothing to do with the goat-headed image that Eliphas Levi created. and it has nothing to do with the head of the John the Baptist. That, according to the official story, is John the Baptist, but we know the truth behind that is that it is the green man, Apollyon. So the Baphomet has nothing to do with those two things at all. The Baphomet is a word, a code word for Sophia, or wisdom, which points us to the Virgin Mary, or the Catholic Virgin Mary, the woman that they claim is the Virgin Mary. But now we know that that is not the truth. We know who she really is. This woman is Satan. She is the adversary. And so now that you know, you can hopefully fight the lies and deceptions with the truth. So thank you for watching. I hope you're all edified. Jesus bless you, and please comment below if you got anything out of the video. Thank you.